Your kind and warm words, and hello to everybody on this beautiful morning here in Berlin, at least, and I hope for you too. And I'm talking, yes, I have been working, now I'm not working anymore for 1.5 years, and I had been working for VZBV, the German Federation of Consumer Organizations. I worked there for 30 years about, and more than 20 years I worked in the field of financial services, banks, insurance companies, investment companies, debt, insolvency, and so on. And so yes, I have got some experience on it, and I'm trying to present to you now the German social non-profit debt advice system and the funding of debt advice services. I think the funding part is only a small part of my presentation, because funding is rather precarious and it's done in a very different ways, because Germany is a state of federal states, and everyone is doing this funding business as he likes. And so I was asked by Dieter to also present an overview of the cooperation between the German debt counseling organizations, and I will do this rather largely then. I cannot see the presentation. Noel?
Yeah, no problem. I'll open my version for you.
Yeah. Or at least I cannot find how I can.
Okay, don't worry. And it's just opening now.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, you can do the next one. Yes, my presentation is first on the system of debt counseling, and of course also on funding. I will say something about the situation of indebtedness in Germany. I will talk about the debt advice as field of action of social work. Will reflect on the legal basis and responsibilities of debt and insolvency advice, on the system of public and associational welfare and consumer advice, and on the funding. And I will reflect on the Arbeitsgemeinschaft Schuldnerberatung der Verbände, AGSBV, which I was part of since 1995. In English, it would be the working group debt counseling of the associations, as a sort of umbrella organization, not just a working group of associations in the area of social debt advice. I will speak on the origin of this organization and working group. I will speak on the agreement, on the contents, organization of work, and on the current challenges, of course. And then at the end, I will say something on where are we today, what can be learned. You can go on. Okay. Yes, the number of over-indebted people in Germany is about almost 6 million private persons. Concerning statistics of last year, it's a ratio of 8.5%. It's a decline by almost 16% since 2020, but this has many reasons. Corona, of course, is one reason, because people didn't go to debt counseling as many as in the years before. Not so many people couldn't go also to the insolvency counseling and undergo an insolvency procedure. And there are some more reasons for this. Some people spend less money. The reasons for over-indebtedness, according to the Federal Office for Statistics last year, the big 6 reasons are unemployment, 20%, divorce, separation from the partner, 12%, illness, addiction or accident, 17%, uneconomic budget management, 15%, failed self-employment, 8%, and permanent low income, 10%. Oops. The legal basis for debt counseling in Germany are the social codes. The social codes mainly of the 16 federal states. And of course, extremely important is who is entitled to debt counseling. There are some groups that are entitled and others are not mentioned, and it's very different over the 16 federal states. Then the responsibilities, the municipalities and regional districts are responsible, and they can do debt advice in their own sponsorship and with own personnel, or they can transfer and assign the tasks to external service providers, for example, welfare organizations or consumer organizations. This advice then is a free advice. The legal basis for insolvency counseling are the insolvency regulations, and the responsibility lies within the 16 federal states like Bavaria, North Rhine-Westphalia, and so on. And the states also are doing the recognition and funding of appropriate counseling centers. The result is that we have a very separate legal and financial responsibility, not a uniform one. What about the work of the associations in this field of social work? Those welfare organizations, they especially deal with children, adolescents, poverty, addiction, rehabilitation, and debts. And mainly there are 5 big organizations in Germany. That's the Arbeiterwohlfahrt, the former worker welfare, the Caritasverband, which is Catholic, of course, the Protestant Diakonie, the German Parity Welfare Organization, and the German Red Cross. Those are the big 5, and very rather old, long established organizations. Then there is the consumer advice with the VZBV, where I worked, and we are an umbrella organization of more than 40 organizations, especially umbrella of the 16 consumer centers in the federal states providing consumer advice, and also some consumer centers providing for debt advice, about 30 of them. And we represent also consumer interest vis-a-vis the supplier side, and are doing lobbying work and communication work, of course, and also consumer education on the federal level, and all are funded by the states. Debt counseling. Until 1995 in Germany, we had the first debt counseling centers. They were founded between 1973 and 77. In 1983, there were about 40 to 60 centers in Germany. They all were in sponsorship by welfare organizations or municipalities. And in 1986, which is very important, the Federal Working Body of Professional Debt Counselors was founded, the BAGSB. It was founded by the debt counselors themselves to give them more possibilities, more strength in general. There was no supra-regional cooperation and representation in this field of work vis-à-vis politics, and there was quite a bit competition between the BAGSB and the welfare organizations, but also between some of the welfare organizations themselves. So situation was not that easy. Now I'm coming to the period 95 to 99. In 95, things changed quite a bit because we had a conference of those 7 associations which I mentioned, and all the 7 organizations were participating in that conference, and we had been working on an agreement for cooperation between those 7 associations, and we were finally deciding on it in April 95, and the general objectives for us were representation of common concerns of all debt counseling organizations, a development of a constitution, workflows, rules of procedures. We wanted to represent the interest via the ministries, via parliament, politics in general, and other associations like the banking associations. And we had the plan of developing standards for counseling. This agreement of the members was signed by all 7 presidents or managing directors. The last one in the year 2000. So for some associations, it took quite a long time to get to the top level. But anyway, they all signed it, and so there was now a common platform for a professional and cross-associational cooperation. Some more concrete objectives of our work were the promotion of the professional work of debt counseling and organized information, advice, cooperation between the members, the support on the federal level concerning state bodies and administrations, the participation in legislative processes with a special focus also on consumer policy, where we were working in, the support of education on a federal level, the cooperation with science and research, doing conferences, and the promotion of international cooperation. This working group or umbrella, the AGSBV, had no own office because there was no funding by the associations at all. The office was the place of work of the respective speaker, and the speaker and the deputy speaker were elected for 2 years. Currently, it's Roman Schlag of the Caritas, and the second one is Michael Weinhold. I really would like to thank Michael Weinhold. He helped me a lot with this presentation, because I had to undergo a surprising surgery in a hospital 6 days ago, and so without him I wouldn't be able to do this presentation this morning. Each member names 2 representatives for the standing committee. Decisions are taken with a majority of 2/3, so 5 out of 7. The meetings of the standing committee take place 4 to 6 times a year. I would say rather 6 times than 4 times. There can be, and there were, and there are special working groups, some permanent, some ad hoc. They prepare the decisions for the standing committee, and their members are named by the AGSBV. And at the moment, the following working groups exist: lobby work, finances, insolvency law, foreclosure law, digitization, energy poverty, and even some more. The number of the debt counseling agencies in Germany. At the moment, in total, we have about 1,400 to 1,450 debt counseling agencies, most of them led by Caritas or Diakonie, by the Catholic and Protestant organizations. You see this here in the text. Consumer organizations, very few, rather few, and the municipalities and districts, they have got about 200 debt counseling centers. And I should say 1,400 about. This is probably a bit more than 2,000 people, 2,000 debt counselors working in that field of activity. And many people have tried to find out what would be the right number of debt counselors if there would be a good supply with debt counseling, and they have figured out that it's about two debt counselors on every 40,000 inhabitants. So it would be rather at least 4,000 debt counselors, and you see we are not at that point. There are far too few debt counselors in Germany. And so we have to find some other solutions for this problem. So the funding is lacking because municipalities and districts, they give too few money and too little money, and so we have to choose partly other solutions. For example, an effective cooperation body like we are having now since 1995, effective ways of lobbying, more consumer education in schools, etc. Each federal state, each municipality, each district has a funding system of its own. Also in the 16 federal states, the banks are not obliged to fund debt counseling, although they are partly responsible for high debts. But at least one banking group, the savings banks, had committed regionally to support non-profit debt counseling by money. For example, in North Rhine-Westphalia, the Sparkassen, the savings banks, they give 3 million euro a year. In Rhineland-Pfalz, they give 1.3 million. There are some more federal states like Lower Saxony and Mecklenburg-Vorpommern where there is a Sparkassen savings banks law which tells the Sparkassen to give funding. And the savings banks also got a special service called money and budget, which, if I know right, is also a member of the ecdn. This insufficient funding leads to long waiting times for debtors and consumers, and also for self-employed people. And the objective is a common and more sufficient funding of debt and insolvency counseling. But I fear we are still far from that. The problem also is the federal side that say we are not allowed to fund anything. We are a federal state, and the advice part, the counseling part, is the responsibility of the regional governments, and we must not fund anything here. The further problem is the legal right to counseling for all consumers or self-employed people. Such a legal right only applies for a limited group of authorized people, like those ones that get a basic security in old age, and a few more groups, but not everyone can just go there, for example, to the municipality and say, I want to get debt counseling. Of course, if you go to a Catholic or Protestant agency, they will accept you, but they will tell you, I'm sorry, but you have to wait for 6 weeks before we can give you the first advice. There is, where are we now? There is a high recognition for the work of debt counselors by politics on all levels. There are some federal funds for project to the extent of €1 million per year. The problem on the federal level is there is no permanent support, and there is no funding of ongoing debt advice. One example for a project in Germany is the funding of a project to develop concepts for outreach debt counseling for seniors that are not able to go to the agency themselves. The funding structures stay precarious, and it's also a problem of the separated responsibilities. The federal government may not fund counseling work. And the concept of this social non-profit debt counseling is only a good one if there are standards for counseling. The AG-SBV now has published standards for a better differentiation against commercial and dubious debt counselors, and to give guidelines for a better qualification. Because if you can imagine that if there are only a limited number of non-profit debt counseling agencies, other agencies will develop and have established, and some of them are, as we say, black sheep, dubious, very costly, and so it's important to have some standards, some agreed standards for counseling. There is a shortage of skilled experts, new experts that don't go into that area of debt counseling because they say, well, probably there won't be enough funding money that we can be paid for a long time, and so at the moment there is a shortage. So it gets important to have an early involvement and participation in the legislative process, for example, concerning the new Consumer Credit Directive, and for generally improving debtor protections through professional and political action, and also of thinking about standards with digitizing the work of debt counseling. So the conclusion of it all is, or part of the conclusion is, that debt counseling is highly recognized in Germany, but not sufficiently funded. As the funding can be precarious, other objectives as preventive action get the more important. The AGSBV, with its good cooperation between 7 associations, is highly recognized as a sort of umbrella organization and a representative in the area of debt counseling. And access to debt counseling is dependent on residence status and the regulations in the federal state of the residents. So thank you very much. I think I have some question